Hi, welcome back to Music Marketing TV. I'm your host, Kevin Ochoa, and we'll be talking about Kilohearts V2 in this video. Kilohearts is one of those companies that come once in a blue moon. They entered the music software industry blazing with energy and shook up both the soft synth and the signal processor market. Kilohearts V2 software delivers new modulators, new functions, and workflow updates. Snap Heap and Multipass now have the same modular modulation system as Faceplant. V2 is completely free for V1 users, so make sure you update your Kilohearts software right now. We will learn how to use some of my favorite new plugins in V2. We'll start off with the Curve modulator and then go from there. Now let's play back this hybrid Moombahton and drum and bass track, which will serve as our demo. Alright, so that's some of the sounds we're going to be working with. I'm going to go over some of these, and we're also going to build some sounds together and add them to this track. Alright, let's get started with the Curve modulator. Curve is Kilohearts' take on the multiple stage envelope generator. As an FL Studio user, I really appreciate when companies add MSEGs as a modulation source for their synths and effects. With Curve, you can combine sweep downs, sweep ups, wobbles, and everything in between. Loop point creation is awesome and a valuable tool when sustaining notes. The Curve editor will help you create new accurate curves using point, free draw, and step draw tools. The adjustable grid snapping is great when wanting to combine both stepped and free curves. Alright, so here we have Faceplant, we have a pluck playing. Okay, and now what I want to do is use a curve to turn this into a stab and then a build-up sweep. All right, now I have the preset that I made already here, and let's enable it, just so you can get a feel for what we're going to shoot for. And we can see the curve right here. Awesome. Let's go ahead and make this not from scratch, but from duplicating this other plug right here. Let's disable it again. All right, now let's duplicate the track. And what I'll do is I'll just grab the note from here and make it short, like so. And you can hear there, it's just a small little pluck. Now, I'm gonna pitch it down, maybe block this from there, so it's lower in the register. And what I'll also do is I'll come to my oscillator here. Okay, you see this? I can change the semitone and the cent. In this case, I'll grab the curve. And I'm gonna set it to modulate my semitones. I'm gonna right click right here. And now I can set it, hey, let's modulate 22 or 24 cents. Let's go for 48. In this case, because I already know that 24 was not enough. See there, I can left click and reset it. I can also right click again, press backspace and add 48. There we go. You can see that the waveform has changed a bit. And if I move the slope here, you see how it moves, right? So if I had it pitched up, it moves quicker. If it's pitched lower, it moves slower. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll set this to sync, of course. Then I'll shoot for 32, and I'll set this at 64. Or 64 minus 8 is 56, which will end at the 7th bar that we have right here. All right. And now what I'll do is I'll use the curve editor to create some curves. Let's add a curve right here at the beginning. And then let's add a curve around the 16th minute or 16th beat. Around here. And then another around the 32nd. So somewhere around here. And finally we'll end up making a complete rise right there. I can also set this to snap. Right? So now this snaps to different points in my song. I could also change the grid size. See that? So now I know, hey, that's a little bit too behind the 32nd bar. Let's bring this a little bit more forward, right around there. Okay. Around there. And I could also change the height and percentage. So then I know, okay, if I want to put this roughly around halfway point, it should be around there. And if I want to bring this a little bit more forward, it should be somewhere around here, around 25%. And this guy can get turned a little bit more narrow, like so. See that? Cool. So now our sound sounds like this. Oh, of course, I need to send this to a filter or something of that nature. To open up that sound, what I'll do is I'll come here and set this to the filter cutoff, and I'll do probably around 60-something-ish%. Take a listen. There we go. We can hear it moving. Okay. Now we can tell that this is probably not the right timing we wanted. Let's do 16th. And now this should work. There we go. Okay. Now one last thing is I'll move this tiny bit forward, backward like that. And I'll do the same with this guy right here. And just a little bit further back. Yeah, somewhere like that. All right. Cool. And just raise this a little bit farther up. A little bit more present. Okay. So there we go. We got a cool little curve. I can save this. I'll call this Kilohearts V2 curve. Okay. Now, if I wanted to recall it, I could do so. I could also edit this as well. Another cool function here, if I'm going to edit or loop right here, I can create a sustain, ping pong, and a reverse, right? So that's quite cool that we have these options. If I wanted to do sustain, I could change the little flags right here. Say, hey, I wanted to sustain from here to here after a certain threshold or certain time period. In this case, let's do from here to here. Give it a shot. Cool. If I open up the filter further up and the pitch. And you can hear how that works. So if you're playing sustain notes or chords, this is really helpful. All right, I'm going to disable that because I don't need it for this sound. And let's close this down now. And the next thing I'll do is just play back in the track. See how it sounds like in the context of everything. Oops, I missed it right there. Let's play it back. All right, so you're back. Cool. Now, what I could also do is set this to be kind of like a power chord. Let's look at the chords here in the. I can set this to be E and B. And then what I'll do is just send them down further down an octave. I want to see how that sounds. Cool. So just send that one up an octave now. Cool. I feel like that's the sweet spot right there between the original sound I created and the ones we created together. Okay, now I can do different types of edits to this. I can add distortion, I could add bit crushing, whatever I may like to make this sound more present. I could increase the drive here, change the dynamics, and increase the spread. And I'm gonna just reduce a bit and mix a little bit so it doesn't get too loud. Cool. All right, let's compare it to the other sound I made earlier. Add the visibility back to this. And enable the track. Let's put them together. They kind of sound a little messy, but I feel like they sound pretty good together. So there we go. We created some nice little riser buildups and sweep downs as well, because we can do that just with the curve. Look at that. Quite amazing. So let's hop over to the next part of the video. LFO table. Cycling through 256 LFO tables is now possible with just one LFO table. Using a wavetable as a modulation source opens a whole new realm of possibilities. From jumpy, jagged modulations to FM style modulations, you name it. Use LFO table to generate melodies and even generative patterns. Here we have a regular LFO modulating the LFO table position which is then modulating the synthesizer. How cool is this? Now, instead of just using wavetables for wavetable synthesis, we can use these wavetables as modulation sources. What's amazing is we can edit these wavetables, store them, and recall them whenever we want, just like with the LFO and the curve module. Here we have a pad that's being modulated by an LFO table. As you can see, the LFO table is morphing from a half saw wave to a smoother looking waveform. If we click on the edit tool right here, we can see all the steps where the table morphs. All right, let's listen to the track. So you can see and listen to how it pushes. At first it sounds like a plucky sound, and then it just pushes in. Pretty cool. Now, what I'm using to modulate this table, you can see here, I'm using an LFO that then modulates that table. Frame position, okay? Now, let's add another one just to show you. Let's add an LFO table here. And this time around, we'll edit this, but we'll start off from a preset. So let's click on here. We can use complex. We can use deformative in this case. And what we're going to do is we're going to add another lane, and we're going to add a comb filter. Now we're going to have the gain mix to be set around 30-ish, 39-ish, somewhere around there. Now we can see that the curve right here, or the LFO table, is moving really quickly. We're going to set this to sync, and we're going to slow this down. Let's do 32/16. Okay. That should give us quite a bit of a different type of sounds. Now we're going to modulate the frequency of the comb filter. All right, let's take a listen. If we slow this down further, we can get different sounds. Let's do 64. Okay. So that's really cool. It almost sounds like we're modulating a phaser with an LFO. Really cool. Now we're going to use that same LFO that we used earlier to modulate the table right here. Let's set it to modulate the frame position. See that? And now we're going to be moving almost in a 4-dimensional or 3-dimensional field. Let's take a listen. And now we're going to be moving across the plane. Let's do this. Okay, let's edit the sound here from the frames. And what I'll do is I'll select a range of frames here, and then we're going to come in and we're going to change the stepping here with the tools, draw tool, and let's make a new one right here. Like so. Pretty cool. Now, if we want to move these faster, we could go ahead and do so. Let's do 4/16. Let's take a listen. Awesome. That sounds really nice, almost like liquid drum and bass from back in the day. Okay. Now what I'll do is add a little bit of compression here. Awesome. Let's slow it down just a bit so we get a little bit more of that groove. Now let's see if we want to slow down the movement of that frame. We could add an LFO, but then we're going to slow this down a lot. Let's see that. And let's remove our modulation source from here. Let's remove it. And let's add this right here. And you'll see that we can slow this down so much to where it almost doesn't move. See, yeah, it's slowly moving. Let's take a listen. So you can hear how we create different textures. We created kind of like a liquid sound, and then we did this nice kind of scrapey sound that sounds like almost like from a movie. So we can do that using the wavetable. We can, of course, save those tables that we created. Let's open up Kilohearts again. Let's see, we want to save that table. We can go File, Save, and we'll call it Deformations Variation. Enter. Boom, we have a new wavetable there. Look at that. Awesome. Okay, let's hop over to the next modulator. Audio Follower. Audio Follower allows you to convert input signal into modulation values using set input signal's amplitude. Some quick examples are using the incoming signal's amplitude to duck an oscillator's amplitude or expand a signal. In this example, I'm using the Audio Follower to duck the bass's low end via an inversely linked modulation from a kick drum. And we're also using the same kick drum envelope to accent the mid frequencies by boosting the mid-range. Here we have an Audio Follower. It's being fed by a kick drum right here. Cool. And we can see here that we can choose peak and RMS mode. We can also change attack, release, and gain settings, after which we can send it to different modulation destination. In this case, I'm sending it to 2 different gains. One of the gains is on the low end. And is ducking some of that low end again. And I'm also using a compressor to double that up. And after that, I have a mid-range band, and that's being modulated by the Audio Follower. And the Audio Follower is boosting the gain around 12 dB. However, it's doing this also based on what the LFO over here is positioned at. So as you can see here, I'm modulating from here to there, and I have this yellow line right here that's modulating that signal that's being sent there. If I were to remove this completely, I would always get that boost. So what I'm doing is I'm simply setting this to be around -12 boost, and then adding even more boost using this LFO right here. Quite straightforward. Okay. Now let's listen to it in the context of the track. First, we'll remove the audio follow right there, so we don't get any modulation, to see what our sound sounds like beforehand. Let's turn on that audio follower. So we get some space created for the bottom end of the mix, and I'm also getting some presence out of the sound with just this audio follower technique. Again, you can use this in different methods, and I'll show you another way I use this with vocals. All right, let's move on to the next modulator. Pitch track. The pitch tracker module will track an input signal's pitch and use this pitch information as a modulation source. In this example, I'm using both the audio follower and the pitch tracker. Now, the pitch tracker is mapping specific bands from the filter and tuning them. How? Well, quite simple. We simply add the pitch tracker to modulate the filter position or the frequency, and then the frequency is then tracked along with our pitch. This allows us to vocode or use a harmonizer afterwards, so you can get some really cool robotic sounds or vocal sounds. This also creates some really cool vocal effects. And finally, I'm using the audio follower to gate the filter noise signal. So here I have my background vocals. They're being pitch tracked, and then use that information from the pitch tracker to modulate the pitch shifter, which is also modulated by the LFO. So using the pitch tracker, I'm able to keep a constant reference. Let's take a listen to this without the snap peep. Quédate conmigo. All right, let's add the snap peep. Okay, so you can see here I'm setting this signal completely to the pitch shifter, and I'm using the low compensation. If I use the high compensation, it's going to sound a bit different. So I'm using low, also correlate. And the next thing I'll do is I'll use this LFO editor to create whatever variation I want on the vocal. Let's play back. So then I can play this back with my original vocal and decide if I want this. There we go. So that first half change is okay. This one I removed it a little bit, but there you go. That's how you can use the pitch tracker, the LFO editor together. I'm also going to show you how to use the pitch tracker on an filter. So let's take a listen to that on the pad over here. That's actually a piece of sound design almost that correlates with the vocal. You hear that? So I'm using the snap heap on 2 serial buses, and I'm using the pitch tracker to modulate the filter position, filter cutoff, all right, and a few other sources, the pitch as well, of course, on the pitch shifter, and I believe I have a harmonizer somewhere here as well, or resonator. There we go, a resonator. And then we have the signal being modulated by an LFO on the filter. So we kind of get some movement as well. See that? Let's mute the background vocals. Cool. Let's do one more thing. Let's mute the VC or the group track of the vocal. That way we only get the noise. So it's not exactly 100% in pitch, but we can kind of hear what we're going for. Let's start muting some of these parameters. All right. So I've started off using just the filters. And we can see that I set them to different pitches. So here we have one that's a little bit lower. It's set at 440. The other one's at 880. So it's double that first frequency. So what that allows me to do is create two resonant bands. You can see I'm very aggressive with the first one's Q. It's very resonant. You can also change the slope here to make them even more narrow. The next thing I'm doing on these is adding a pitch shifter and a resonator to give it some tone. And that's also being modulated by the pitch shifter, or the pitch tracker, I should say. See that? Okay. After this, I'm adding another filter. And of course, to open this up in the stereo field, next I'm adding another filter, which is being modulated by the LFOs over here. And I'm also at distortion on that second serial bus. So it's some really fun hectic sound now with that chorus and distortion. Then I add a compression and a gate on this other one over here because the sound was quite aggressive. And finally, add reverb, another filter on the low end so this serial bus doesn't bleed into the spectrum of the other. And I use a little bit of a gain. Now the gain is using, I believe, the audio follower here. So I told you earlier that we're going to use an audio follower again for another piece of sound design. So here it is. I'm setting it to duck whenever the vocal is not playing. See that? And I finish this off with a resonator. So ideally, to clean this up even further, what I should do is probably double up this vocal and set a clean signal to this snap heap, because what I'm doing essentially is I'm setting the delayed vocal right here because I have snap heaps delays turned on. So what I should do to keep this nicely and in tune is to remove that, and that way I can get a original, just clean vocal into the external track right here. As a matter of fact, let's try it out. Let's just mute the snap heap over here, and we'll see this will make the sound even more in tune. All right, so those were just some cool tricks and tips to get you started with the pitch tracker and the audio follower. So make sure you give it a shot, try out your own productions, run white noise through it, run another synth through it, turn it into a vocoder type of sound, whatever you like to do. Really invest time in the pitch tracker and you'll see you'll get amazing results with it. All right, let's hop over to the next section. One of my favorite new features inside Kilohearts V2 is the ability to automate any parameter. So we're able to basically assign this to MediaTC and automate it. So let me show you really quickly what this looks like. Let's activate these parameters here, and what you'll see is that our rate here is being automated, and so is the cutoff. Isn't that amazing? We're able to automate basically any parameter inside of Faceplant. So what I'll do now is I'll add another modulator right here. I'll add a second LFO. And what I'll do is I'll set it to sync. But let's slow this down. Okay. Now I'll add a second distortion over here on after the ladder filter. Okay. And what I'll do is I'll slightly drive it a little bit using the LFO. Right? You can see it's smoothly moving. Now, if I want to automate this modulation going into the drive, I'll right click right here, select assign to automation slot, and I'll assign it to slot 3. You can see how the rate and the cutoff there is assigned to slot 3. And now what I'll do with Cubase is, since I have that selected, let's close this right here. I'm going to add a new automation source. And I'll go more. And I'll go into the synth right here. Let's use automation slot number 3, which is the drive. And now I can automate this. Let's put it right here in the build-up. Let's move it there twice. Let's go ahead and listen to this. All right, there we go. We created an automation. Now, if I go back to 49, bar 49, and I lower this, it's going to sound a little bit more sweet, and it's not going to sound as aggressive. But I just wanted to show you exactly how to set that up, and the fact that you can also automate the modulation. So that's really cool. If I were to do modulation on this, for example, let's do modulation on the bias. Pretty straightforward again. Just select automation slot 4, boom. Let's do this again, just one more time. More alpha. Let's go to automation slot 4 bias, and there we go. As easy as that. now you can use this automation to help you with your arrangement, with your sound design, and also to maybe copy paste different automations or different modulations from different phase plants to one another. So it's an awesome new feature update that a lot of people requested from Kilohertz. And as we can tell now, they absolutely delivered. All right, let's call it a day for this video. Thanks for tuning in to Music Marketing TV. I'm Kevin Ochoa, and I was your host today. And I hope to see you in a new video soon. Peace.